Hello everyone, this is Charlie from the Bloomingdale Public Library and welcome to Advanced Word Processing using Microsoft Word. I wouldn't say any of the topics we're discussing today are exactly advanced, but they're definitely a continuation from where we left off in the intermediate class. So if you're not familiar with the intermediate class skills, I'd recommend going back before going forward. So what we're going to cover today is a brief overview of what we discussed in the intermediate class. Text boxes in WordArt, Smart Art, tables, charts, templates, and the Design tab. So I know this description doesn't match what we had on the website, but a coworker had covered many of those topics in a previous video, namely mail merging and labels. So if you're interested in those topics, I'd recommend going on our channel and looking for that video. In the intermediate class, we covered shortcuts, layout options, bullet lists, number lists, inserting and manipulating images, headers, footers, and page numbers, and spell check. So again, many of these skills are going to carry over into what we discussed today, namely bullet lists and manipulating images. So if you're not comfortable with those particular skills, I'd recommend going back before going forward. Our first topic for today is text boxes. Text boxes are just boxes of text. They behave very similar to an image in that you can move them around, put a frame on them, things like that. And to put one into our document, what we would do is click on the Insert tab, and instead of pictures, we would go to Text Box. When I click on Text Box, you can see we have a few options available. I'm going to click on the first one, Simple Text Box. And there you go. So now we have a text box in our document with some default text in there. To move our text box, you would just roll over one of the sides, then click and drag when you see the positional arrow. And that's how we would move around a text box. The nodes on the sides will adjust the width. The nodes on the top and bottom will manipulate the height. The nodes in the corners will manipulate both while maintaining the ratio. You'll notice when I do this, it doesn't actually change the font at all. It doesn't squish the text or stretch it out or scale it. Instead, the font stays the same. And if I make things too small, it gets cut off. So to manipulate the size of the text, you would do that the same way you would ordinarily. You would highlight it, and then adjust the font size in the styling section. To put in your own text, you just highlight the text and start typing. Nothing to it. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So also, just like the image options, we've got a rotate arrow. You can see what that does. It's actually kind of neat. We also have a text wrap option. So you can see it reacts to the box, not the text itself. So if I were to do a tight text wrap and rotate, you can get a better idea of how it will react. So with the text box selected, you'll see we have a Drawing Tools Format tab available to us, and we have some options that we can mess with. They should look kind of familiar, but we'll start from the beginning here, where we have Edit Shape. We can click on Edit Shape, roll over, Change Shape, and then choose one of the shapes here. And I'm going to choose an arrow, and when I do that, you see the text box changes into an arrow. There's a few new nodes that appear. They're kind of yellowish, and you can drag those about the sides of the box, and that'll just manipulate the shape a bit. So some shapes will have that option available, some won't. Some other things we can do here is manipulate the color in the shape styles. We can manipulate the outline. In the WordArt styles, we can manipulate the font. give it a new color. You can hardly read that, so let's change it to something different. And that looks kind of ugly, but if you click on the shape styles here, we can manipulate both at the same time. There we go. I recommend anytime you adjust the colors on something to use one of the theme colors. It'll make it easier to do some things later. And one more thing I want to cover, if we go back to the Insert tab, is Word Art. Word Art basically acts the same as a text box. It's going to look, if you're old enough, you'll remember this kind of thing from the 90s. The only real difference between Word Art and text boxes is how you first create it with these visual options here. And if you select text, you can actually convert it into Word Art, where you can't do that with a text box. Other than that, once they're created, they behave basically the same way. The next topic I want to cover is Smart Art. And what Smart Art is basically a graphical representation of a bulleted list. It's actually kind of neat. So let's go to the Insert tab and then Smart Art. And this is where we have all of our categories and designs for our Smart Art. On the far right, you'll see a description of how you might use that particular design. So I'm going to go to Hierarchy and click OK. So once you select your Smart Art, you see the Smart Art appear in the document on the right, and then you have a bulleted list over on the left. I'm going to go ahead and just start this guy from scratch, and you'll see as you edit your bulleted list, it is reflected in the Smart Art. So we'll go ahead. We're not going to do anything too original here, but we'll create a hierarchy here. And just like an ordinary bulleted list, you use Tab to go down one level, Shift Tab to go up a level. So I'm going to go back all the way out. I think you get the point. When you're all done with your bulleted list, you can X out, and there you go. You'll notice that you have the nodes just like you would with an image or a text box. You can also move it around, albeit I don't have a whole lot of flexibility because of its size. And we have text wrapping options available as well. So if you decide after the fact that you want to change the design of your Smart Art, you can roll over the options that are available in the layout section, or if you like, you can choose more layouts and pick a new one. So if I were to choose Picture Organization Chart, it looks basically the same, except you see we have picture placeholders. So in that case, you would click on the picture icon. You can either do a search or pull something out that you already have locally stored. And there you go. Now you have an image within your Smart Art. So some other things we can do here. We can change the Smart Art styles, maybe make it 3D. We can change the colors, maybe yellow and green. That's certainly interesting. And something to keep in mind is ultimately the Smart Art is just a bunch of images and text boxes and shapes just thrown together. So if you really wanted, you can select one of the shapes, go to the Smart Art Tools Format tab, and then go ahead and change that text box like you would any other text box. Again, I recommend sticking to the themed colors just because it'll be easier to manipulate everything later. You can even change the shape if you really like. So it's very flexible. If you do wind up getting lost in making things a little too customized, getting a little too creative, if you go to the Smart Art Tools Design tab, you can reset the graphic and it'll put everything back to the way it was. So there's a lot to play around with here, but I think you've got an idea of the basics, so have fun with it. And don't forget about that undo button. The next topic I'm going to discuss is tables. Tables are a way of organizing content into a grid of cells. So if you think of Excel, it's just like that. We're going to be inserting a small data sheet into our Word document. So to create a table, we would click Insert, click on Table, and from here we have a few options. The first one is my favorite, and that's where we simply drag the mouse across the grid in the drop-down menu, and when you have the dimensions you like, you just click the button. And you can see the changes for what it will look like in the document in real time. So click, and then you have a table. I'm going to undo that, click on Insert, click on Table, and this time I'm going to click on Insert Table. And instead of drawing a table, it gives us this pop-up box where we can determine our dimensions with numerical inputted values. So the reason we might do that is if our table is bigger than 10 by 10, which is the biggest we can do with the grid that they give us. So if we needed something like 200 rows, we would need this little pop-up window instead. So I'll hit OK, and there we go. We have this much bigger table that we couldn't do with our first option. I'm going to undo that, show you one other thing we can do, and that is to copy-paste a table from Excel. So I'm going to open up Excel, where I already have a table created. I'm going to copy it, open Word, paste it, and then in the lower right we have this little clipboard that appears. You click on that. We have a couple paste options. I usually choose the second, which is to use the destination style. Click on that. Hit Escape to get rid of the clipboard. And once again, we have a table. So now that we have a table in our document, we can do a couple things. The first, we can move it. You see we have a little icon in the upper left there, just like our little moving icon. So you click and drag, and that's how we would move the table. In the lower right, we have a little empty square. If we click and drag on that, we can adjust the size of the table. As we roll over the top or the left of the table, we get a little plus sign with a line. That's how we would insert rows or columns. So if I click the plus button like that, you can see we get a new column inserted. To insert data into a table, you just click on it. And start typing. Likewise, we can click the plus button on the left, and it's the same thing. Going left to right, all you need to do is hit Tab to go to the next cell. And there you go. To adjust the size of the cells, you can click and drag on the border. You can do that for the rows width or height. And as far as the content of the cells, you can put in pretty much anything, even if you really wanted a picture. So if I click on online pictures, search for a rocket, insert. And you can see that I messed around with things a little bit, but that is how that works. So because you can do pretty much anything with the cells of a table, as far as formatting, images, and the like, people tend to use tables to format their pages. So you'll see that particularly with templates, where the entire page will have a table, and that table will be used to divide sections of the page. Continuing with tables, there's a few ways we can edit or change the look of our table within Word. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the table. And when I do, you can see we've got two new tabs, the Table Tools Design tab and the Layout tab. So I'm going to have a look at the Design tab first. And let's say we want to add a little bit of color. What we can do is hit the down arrow by the Table Styles section, and you see we've got a nice collection of colors we can use. So I will select orange, and when I did so, you can see we've also got banded rows, a highlighted first column. If you wanted to play around with the checkboxes, you can get a different look depending on your use case. If you wanted to highlight a specific cell, just put the cursor in the cell, go to shading, and choose your color. Again, I recommend sticking with the themed colors so you can manipulate the colors later with the themes command, which we'll discuss later. And there you go. If you wanted to select a range of cells, simply select a cell, hold down Shift, choose the cell at the end of the range, and from here we can select shading, choose another color, and the whole range is shaded. So if you wanted to do something with the borders, I'm going to go ahead and select the whole table. Again, clicking in one cell in the upper corner and then Shift click on the cell in the far corner. Click on the borders command, and from here you can see all the different border options we have as I roll over them in real time. So if I select no border, and that's what we get. So again, selecting the table here, I'll go ahead and put some borders back. I'm going to have a look at the Layout tab now. And here's where we would do some editing. If we wanted to, let's say, get rid of the Rockets column, just put the cursor anywhere in the Rockets column, go to the Delete command, and then Delete column. And no more Rockets. Let's say we wanted to get rid of New York and everything about it. We'd click anywhere in the New York column, click on Delete, delete rows, and that's the end of New York. You can also copy and paste or cut and paste entire columns at one time. If you select everything in a single column, cut, you can see it's gone. Say I wanted to put it at the end of the table, put the cursor in the planes column, hit paste, and there you go. You see everything has reappeared. So one more thing I'd like to discuss is splitting and merging cells. So that is something you would use particularly if you were using tables to format a page. So what you would do is you collect a bunch of adjacent cells, click on Merge Cells, and now it's all combined into a single cell. If you wanted to split cells, I'll put my cursor in another cell here. Again, under the merge section, we click split cells, and we have an option as to how many columns and rows we want to split it into. So let's say we do a 3 by 3. Okay. And there we go. Now we have a table within a table, essentially. So there's a few other options. Most of them you've probably seen before if you've ever used Excel, but feel free to goof around with them. And again, always remember that undo button if it comes to it. The next topic is going to be another fun one, and that is charts, where SmartArt would graphically represent a bullet list. A chart is going to be a graphical representation of table data. And because they share so much in common, I'm going to go through it kind of quick, and I'm not going to do repeat content, but I'll still tell you what you need to know and give you some examples here. So to insert a chart, put the cursor where you want the chart, go to the Insert tab, and then click Chart. Just like the SmartArt, we have a list of categories along the left and a bunch of designs along the top. I'm going to select the bar category and choose stacked bar. Click OK. When I do that, I get a chart in the document and some default data in a table here. So when I start manipulating data within the table, just to show you, you instantly see the change represented in the chart. So like with the numbers, if I start manipulating the row names, so Chicago, New York, you start to see the changes reflected in the left. So if you already have a table worth of data, what you can do is copy and paste that into the table representing the chart. And since I already have a table created within Excel from before, I'm going to copy and paste that into the table. And that message is just saying that my paste doesn't match the area I was pasting into, so I went ahead and fixed that. And there we go. When you're all done entering your data, click the X, and it threw me back to Excel, so we'll go back to Word, and there we go. So again, most of this should look familiar in terms of the nodes, the sides, text wrap. The plus side's a new one. When I click on the plus sign, we can add and remove elements of the chart. If we wanted to start manipulating elements of the chart, we just need to click on the element and make our change. You'll notice when I double clicked on an element for the chart, we also got some options on the right. They're the same stuff that you'll find in the Format tab. So here we have patterns, fills, borders. And if I click on the Format tab, it's the same kind of thing, the shape fills, the shape outlines. So again, the Format tab should look very similar to what we saw in the WordArt, or the SmartArt rather. The only big difference is you can't really manipulate the elements of the chart the way you can SmartArt because you're going to be restricted by the table data. So I can manipulate the shape fill. If I choose another color for that, I can choose an outline, but I'm not going to be able to change its size or move it. So again, just like with the SmartArt, if I click on the Design tab, I can choose different chart styles and see what they look like as I roll over them. I can change all the color schemes at once with the change colors. If I wanted to go back into the data and change something, again in the Design tab, we'd click on Edit Data. And that'll bring our table back up. And if we wanted to, say, change our chart types, we can do that too from the Design tab. And that may or may not look like what you'd expect. Again, it depends on what kind of data is going into what kind of chart. But that's a quick overview of what it is to create a chart and how to manipulate it. Again, it's a fun thing to play around with. As long as you remember you have that undo button, I'd say go nuts. I'm going to do the last two topics out of order and instead start with the Design tab. The commands on the Design tab are designed to change the overall look of your document with just a few mouse clicks. In order to get the Design tab commands to work, you need to do two things. One, you need to restrict yourself to the themed colors for all the elements of your document, which we've been doing throughout the class. And the second thing you need to do is label your text, which starts on the Home tab. If you're like me, you've probably ignored the right half of the Home tab for most of your Microsoft Word career. And I'm talking about this little section here with all the ABCDs, heading 1, blah, 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 blah. But if we're going to be able to use the design commands, we need to label our text. So I'll show you how that works. I'm going to start off just going across there. Heading 1, heading 2, title, subtitle. And with these pieces of text in place, I'm going to go ahead and highlight heading 1 and then click on the heading 1 style. So basically what these styles are the default font styles for the Office theme. So we're going to just go ahead and set these all up. And so for the Office theme, the title, subtitle, and various headings default to these font styles here. And there we go. Did I do that one right? Subtitle. There we go. So there you go. If you wanted to stick with the Office theme, now anytime you wanted to, say, start another heading, heading 2, you just highlight it, set to heading 2. I mean, you don't have to use the font styles for their appropriate things. You can use a body font with a heading 3. It's up to you. But with everything in place now, let's go ahead and check out the Design tab. So to the far right, we have themes. After that, we've got document formatting, which just involves the text. And then we've got colors. So to start, if we look at the document formatting here, as I roll over each style, you'll notice, or each document format, the font for the heading 1, heading 2, title, subtitle all change, depending on which format I'm using. So that is the advantage of labeling all of our text, and it's so we can use this particular command. Next, we can look at the colors here. And it's seem to be lagging a bit here. But you can see once I select a color, everything changes. There we go. So it's supposed to happen as we roll over. You can see my table, my chart, my smart art, my text box. Everything changes colors depending on which color scheme I'm using. So again, it's very useful for changing the overall look of a document. If you work for some sort of firm with a lot of clients and you need to change the color scheme for each client, there you go. It's a nice, quick, easy way to, again, change the overall look of your document. So we've got a few other things we can look at. The font, we've got just a couple things you can do per style there. We've got some effects we can also look at. This will change the look of all of our text boxes and smart art and such. But if we wanted to control it all at once, we can use the themes command all the way on the far left. And here, you can see the font styles and the colors all change depending on which theme I roll over. So again, it's a nice, quick, easy way to change the overall look of the document with just a few mouse clicks. And it's extremely useful later when we start looking at templates, as the templates are all also set up to use the themes. Our final topic for today is going to be templates. Templates are reusable, pre-created content. So basically somebody else made a document and we're going to repurpose it for our own use. To use a template, just go to File, New, and then anything that isn't a blank document would be considered a template. So you can either use one of the suggested searches to filter your results, or you can conduct your own search. Just a heads up, you do need an internet connection in order for the searching functionality to work. I'm going to type in resumes. Something else to be aware of, some templates are better than others with regards to functionality. Some of them will work with themes better. Some of them will have more or less default content put into it. So be aware that not all templates are created equal. So floating through here, I am going to choose the Blue Spheres resume. Click Create. And that brings us here. So now what we can do is customize it a little bit by using the Design tab. So I'll click on Design. We can look at some of the document formatting. You see, just rolling over the different document formats, things can change quite a bit. So again, it's a handy tool to customize the template. We can also work with the colors a bit. Seem to be lagging a little bit, but as you roll over, you should see different results. And of course, if we wanted to change the colors and the text formatting all at once, we can use the theme command all the way on the left. And again, you can see things can change radically just messing with the Design tab. So once you have the colors and the font the way you like it, you'd start clicking on the default text and entering your own. It may be difficult to figure out what goes where and what you can type in and how it's formatted. And just to remind you what I said earlier before, a lot of the templates are formatted with tables. So you might be trying to move some text around and nudge things around. If you keep in mind things are put together with tables, that makes things a little easier. Some things to help with that would be to, first of all, click around, make sure you're in the table. You'll know you're in the table when you see this little moving marker. Go to the Table Tools. And under Layout, click on View Grid Lines. Now it's pretty clear how our grid is put together. Something else that will help is clicking on the View tab and click on Ruler. So now if you look on the top and on the left, you can see where the table cell borders are, and you can click and drag on the ruler if you have trouble doing it within the document itself, which sometimes it is kind of hard to get the arrows to pop up. So you would type in your own content, click on the picture, put in your own picture, and if you have trouble trying to click on images, something I've seen is sometimes they'll stick it in the header. So if I go to Insert, Header, Edit Header, you'll see that's where they put the background images. So it's actually pretty nice, but if you wanted to get rid of it or perhaps replace it with one of your own, Again, you'd have to enter the header or footer, click on it, and click delete. And now it's gone. So there you go. That's how to use a template, at least a basic overview. It's a very helpful tool to, get something going real quickly, or perhaps just have a nice starting point to create your own document. That's all we have time for today. If you were interested in learning more and you have a Bloomingdale library card, what I'd recommend you do is go to lynda.com through our website. You would do that by going to mybpl.org, roll over the word learn, click on online courses, and once you're on this page, click on lynda.com. On this page, you'd enter your library card number and PIN. If you need help with either one of those, I recommend you get in touch with the library and we can help you. And once you do that, you'll come to this screen. It's a pretty busy screen, but what you're probably wanting to do is click in the search bar and search for whatever skill you're interested in learning in. So basically, all of these courses are going to be taught by professional trainers or college professors, and you can learn pretty much anything, especially in the Microsoft Office suite, the Adobe suite, or anything regarding computer programming. I personally use it for my own learning and to help structure my classes. So let's say you wanted to learn more about Word 2016. Just type that in, click on Essential Training, and that will take you to this course. The course is taught in clips of about 5 minutes each, and you can see the name of each skill taught for each clip, so you can pick and choose and skip around. And that's all there really is to it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a good day.